Hey, if you're stuck at 6 loans a month and feel like you just can't break through, then I want you to listen to this episode because here's three mistakes that are keeping you stuck. And I'm going to give you some ideas on how to fix them. And this is something, I've had the great privilege of working with so many loan officers this last year in our boot camp. Carl White and I have joined forces on the Alliance boot camp, and there have literally been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of loan officers that have gone through the boot camp and continue in our Alliance program. And you know what? This is something I thought I would highlight because I'm seeing that this is really an area where a lot of people get stuck. They'll go from 2 to 3 to 5 to 6. And somebody who hits 6, 7 fundings and drops back down, or 6, 7 fundings, and it's like, I just can't break through. Because look, breakthrough really happens as you're getting to double digits in 10, 12, 15, 20, 30 units a month. You start seeing exponential growth because what happens is you're able to get more team members, more help. You're focused on the right activities. So here's three things I see that are holding most loan officers back who are stuck at about 6, 7 units a month. Number one is spending time on low payoff activities. And I know it sounds pretty obvious, like, hey, of course, spending time on low payoff activities. But what I see is it's more of a reaction instead of being proactive. Like, somebody who's stuck at 6 loans a month is typically somebody that they've got a little bit of structure in their day, but the truth is a lot of what's happening is reactive. I've got, my processor needs me to set title, and I had a question about insurance, and the appraisal's coming in late. And by the way, my processor has a question and the underwriter needs to get in touch with me, or I've got a front end team member and they keep coming and interrupting my day. And the challenge is all of those things are good in the right order. And in the boot camp, I know in week 4, we go strategically through building routines that help you stay accountable to your sales, not only goals, but your sales freedom and financial freedom. And here's the thing. When you evaluate what you're doing, the number one mistake somebody who's getting stuck at around 6 units a month is when you're spending time on low payoff activities, you're not spending time on the high value activities, which are, it's really this. Steve, what's the number one key to success that you've seen over the last year with hundreds of people going just through the boot camp? It's the successful people hyper focus on sales activity, the high payoff sales activity, because here's the truth. Not all work moves the needle. And, I think about this. If hard work alone produced a profit, man, there would be a lot of wealthy people, but hard work oftentimes just makes you more tired. So the question is, what activity are you doing today that's producing, I think about the principle, 80-20 principle, where 80% of the work you're doing today is producing 20% of your results. So when I look at my daily routine and I look at today and I look at my calendar, and one of the cool things that I've done that helps me a whole lot is on anything that sells activity, I color code it green. Everything else, I color code red. And what it allows me to do is look at this week and see, where's my time going? Am I doing high payoff activities, which is sales activity, or am I doing red time, which is administrative, chasing conditions, doing emails and doing videos and social media? And look, we got to do some of all of that, but not at the detriment of the high payoff activities, because you got to remember this. If you look at your week this week and you begin to realize you're doing 20% of the work that's producing 80% of the results. And so where should your time be spent? On calls, outbound prospecting, meeting referral partners, working with your team to delegate tasks so that your time is freed up and you're in high payoff, high sales activity, high return zone. It's like, man, okay, what could you do? Here's what I would tell you. Your solution, in my opinion, if you're finding yourself spending time on low payoff activities, here's what I'd love for you to do. And we go at length through this in the boot camp and Alliance. List out your low dollar per hour task that you're currently doing. Are you checking emails? Are you responding to texts? Are you following up on conditions? Are you setting up? You go through and look at your day. Just look at today. What is your time being spent on? And the question would be, who could do these tasks and activity? And look, somebody may say, well, I don't have any team members. Well, let's start with number one. Are you doing any processing activities that you could make sure you delegate to your processor? And that's where I would start first. Then I would look at what happens from lead to contract. Are there things in that area that I could delegate? And then am I doing administrative tasks that I could delegate? And if you don't have somebody currently, then that would be the job roles or responsibilities or the task that we would assign to the next person we hire. We call it your acts of freedom. So what we've got to do, number one, is I believe we got to identify, are you spending time on low payoff activities and being honest, not just skimming through it and say, oh yeah, I'm selling all the time, I'm making the calls. Like even this, you might even be making the calls, but are you asking for the business at every call? Are we asking for the business in every conversation? Do we have a desired result when we're making the calls, when we're doing the activity? And am I delegating low payoff activities? Like, look, here's a great, very practical way of doing it. I have a friend of mine closing a little over 20 units a month. And he was like, Steve, man, I just keep getting bombarded with my pre-approval specialist, my back-end loan partner. It's like all roads lead to me, and they'll interrupt me 10 or 15 times a day. Well, look, the first thing is we identified you're doing low payoff activities. So let's do this. We implemented a quick 15-minute morning huddle where everybody can bring the questions to the huddle, and he's able to assign out the task, and they are empowered to make decisions, to have conversations, to move things forward. And they're not allowed to interrupt him until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, where he's doing another 15-minute recap. So you're teaching your team that I don't want to be pulled into low payoff activities, because if I free up this time, I'm going to go sell some more. I'm going to do more sales activity, which gives you all job security and make sure that we got more deals coming in. So something really simple is a morning huddle that answers the questions, empowers your people, and delegates responsibility and task. And then an afternoon, a quick recap to see if they had any questions about the things they were moving forward. So here's mistake number two. So I'd say we got to identify, are we spending time in low payoff activities? Then we've got to really identify what those activities are. And then we've got to ask ourselves, who can do this? And there is typically a who in and around you that could do some of the tasks. But if there's more tasks than you have people, you'll know that's the next person you're going to hire, so they can lift the low payoff activities and you can stay focused on the money-making activities. Here's number two, the number two mistake we see: lacking leverage with systems, tools, and people. I got to tell you this, when you're only one person, the challenge is everything, all roads lead to you. Or when you don't have a consistent system or process that creates consistency. So let me give you an example. I would say, like, when you're not leveraging, like, okay, I'll give you an example. The previous episode we just did is a great episode where I go in and I'm talking about on just this last one we did. I was talking about a powerful 3-minute call, how to have an effective call that converts more of the clients that are calling you to get pre-approved. And when I think about leverage with systems, tools, and people, I think having the same way every time phone call, initial phone call, that loyalty uplifts the agent, that gets them to complete the application and schedules your 30-minute loan consultation. What happens is it's the same way every time. And when I leverage that process, I can take a 3-minute call and produce a significant result. And that is one of the forms of leverage. Instead of answering the phone randomly and just walking them through, whether you know it or not, you got a process. But if we had a strategic process that is efficient, that is effective, that leads people well, and we have the same conversation the same way every time, whether I answer it or whether my pre-approval specialist answers it, or whether an administrator on my team answers it, or whether a back-end loan partner answers the phone, we do it the same way every time. That's leverage. Hey there, if you're loving the tips so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss out on more cool free tips coming your way. I'd also love to hear from you. Make sure to drop a comment below and let me know what you think, or what it is you want to see next. And we'll see you on the inside. See you. Another form of leverage, if you're making outbound phone calls, and let's say you're making 20 outbound calls from 9 to 11 following the process of the daily success plan, if I'm making calls dialing every phone number by hand, I can use technology like a phone dialing system inside the loan officer CRM.ai, and I can make 20 calls in literally about 10 minutes with pre-recorded voicemails that I can drop and an automated email that goes out when it hits their voicemail. So instead of having to hand dial, instead of sending a text, and instead of following it up with another email that I've got to work on, I can utilize technology, and in very short order, where it would take you 2 or 3 hours to prospect with 20, 30 outbound calls, you can do all of that in an hour or less and be more effective with your time. So somebody who's struggling to break through 6, 7, 8 loans a month, typically there's a lack of leverage in whether it's the process, the way I answer the phone, the way I walk a client through their clear next step, or whether it's the technology that I'm using to make the outbound calls, to track the conversations, to dial in the follow-up, to do the emails that are automated with the automated text. And look, I'm not trying to overwhelm you. We just got to identify and be aware, wow, there's a better way. If I want to break through, then I'm going to have to learn how to leverage process, leverage technology. And here's the third thing: leverage your people. And when I say leverage your people, look, I said it earlier. I talk to so many of you, and there's such great conversations. And I'm telling you, it's probably 20 to 30 loan officers individually every single week, on top of the ones that I'm personally, I get the privilege to help coach, and the ones I lead here at the network at Success Mortgage Partners. I got to tell you this, one of the things that I hear from people often, more often than not, is I keep getting pulled back into my files. So how do we leverage people? Well, we empower them. So let me give you an example. If you're a loan officer and you've got 6, 7 loans a month coming in and you're struggling to break through, I would ask you this: how much time are you spending once you hand a loan off from contract to close? How much time are you spending in that file doing any chasing of the conditions, any follow up with the client, with the title, the appraisal, the survey, setting closing? And you would be shocked. When I talk to people, I was talking to somebody who closes a ton of business, $100 million producer. And I asked him, how many hours are you spending contract to close? And this is a rock star. He said, I'm still spending about 10 hours a week. And I just said, okay, so what would need to happen so that we could leverage your people in order to empower them so that they're making decisions? And the only time they come back to you is if it doesn't qualify or it has to do with money. And so leverage it's a process, how I'm leading them through from contract for conversation to contract to close. It is technology. What am I utilizing to make things go faster in less time? And the third thing is it's people. Am I empowering and delegating my people? And you know what I hear in my head? Somebody saying, yeah, but I've tried to delegate, or yeah, they'll tell me all the time, that's not my job, or hey, that's just not what I do. You're going to need to go get it. And I would encourage you with this: empower them. And if you're hearing that's not my job, you'll need to go get it, or I'm not competent or capable, then top grade them. Talk to your manager, talk to someone about getting competent help and support. Because here's what we know: if they'll do the busy work, you'll go get more deals. And if you'll show your manager how that you're doing selling activity, and if they'll pick up the busy work, especially contract to close, you will make more sales. It helps everybody. And so work hard to empower, to delegate, and get your team to get the right people in the right place to keep you out of the files from contract to close. And look, and I'll tell you this: if they say, hey, it's just not the way we're built here, it's not my job, that's not what we're going to do, you may have to consider looking at options. I'm just telling you this, don't be stuck because someone refuses to give you leverage in other people. When you're closing loans, there's profitability there that can be placed towards additional help or the right help to make sure you're out of the busy work. So don't settle. But the mistake number two that people make, number one was spending time in low payoff activities. Number two, lacking leverage in processes, systems, and people and technology. And here's what we got to know is if we'll build leverage and put systems in place and have competent, great people that represent us well, that are empowered and equipped to do the right activity, you're going to see an exponential move in your sales activity and your sales, really your effectiveness in sales. And here's the third one. Third mistake I see. So number one, it's spending time in low payoff activities. Number two, lacking leverage in technology and process and people and tools and systems. Hey, and by the way, that's what I'm really passionate about. So if you're saying, hey, help me, give me a blueprint, I'll show you what I've done here at the network. I'll give it to you. How we've set up structure and process to make it more effective so that our loan officers and branch managers are selling and out of the busy work. Look, as an act of coolness, go to resultswithsteve.com. I'll jump on a 15, 20-minute call. I'll show you what we're doing. I'll even give you the PowerPoint. But really some of the processes we've implemented here that will give you the leverage. So that's just a cool act of coolness. So, hey, mistake number three, and I want to highlight this. I was talking to somebody just literally a few weeks ago, massive producer. I mean, I say massive producer, three years ago was doing over $100 million. And then in short order, these last probably year and a half, 2 years, his business and volume dropped significantly, only doing a handful of loans a month. We jumped on a call and he's sitting here a little distraught, just saying, man, I know what it's like to close a lot of loans. And I've very systematically watched my business decline over the last couple of years. And here's what I think the third mistake is to somebody breaking back above the 6 units a month is number three is neglecting high value relationships. And I know that's a obvious statement, but here's what's interesting. When he and I begin to dig deeper into the business, what's your activity? Are you still making proactive calls? Are you asking for the business? Are you touching the lead, touching the partner? Are you following the processes that helped you break $100 million just a few years ago? And his answer is yes, 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 yes. Then what we've got to look at is this. Let's talk about the relationships you have. And so we began to look at the agents that had actively referred him the business, which is where the majority of his business came from. And here's what we found out. We found out that he had neglected the high value relationships because thinking everybody's still qualified. And this is probably the greatest lesson we learned about 3 years ago when we watched the market literally flip overnight. It's probably 2.5 years ago now. And what it was most people don't understand the value of a qualified agent. And to break through, it's not a one and done. When I was talking to Sarah and Keneith and Sharon, some of the great people that are part of the network here, we were talking about it. You literally have to check if your agents are qualified every 30 to 60 days. Because what's happening in the market, just like you saw a massive exodus of realtors over the last loan officers in the last 12 to 18 months, realtors are going through the same cycle. They're selling. If they don't have a process to selling and they're not doing the same way every time and they're not following theme days and they're not being accountable and consistent and making the calls and asking for the business, they've watched their business steadily decline. Doesn't mean the business isn't there. We know from the MBA that this is like the 5th or 6th best year since 2000. So we know there's a lot of sales happening. The key is, are the relationships you have still qualified? And we have to go back in. And some of you may say, well, what's a qualified agent? A qualified agent is an agent that closes more than 8 buy-side transactions a year. So we've got to go back in and look at, are the agents that we've built relationships with, that we know, that we like, that we trust, that we're following up with weekly and biweekly and monthly, are they qualified? Because the shocking truth is most of them have fallen off being qualified. And so we're doing the right activity. You're making the calls, you're asking for the business, but guess what? You're not getting the business. They don't have it. I say it like this. We know that for every 4 relational leads, we're going to close 1 transaction on average. It's what we see in the membership. I'm not making an income claim. I'm just reporting what we see and what we see here in the network. It's about 1 in 4. So on my team, and so here's what I know. If I've got an agent that's closing 4 transactions that are buy side a year, they can refer about half. Why? The other 2 have cash or they've already got a relationship, but they get 4 opportunities. They're going to refer me 2. And here's what I know. If I get 2, I may or may not have a transaction in there. So if I get 2 relational referrals this year and I get 2 next year, which year am I going to close a transaction? I don't know about you. And this is the dilemma when I was working with my friend who was a loan officer who had reached out. This was the dilemma. It's like, yeah, you're going to get the business again, but is it this year or next year? So you're spending all this time prospecting and inviting to happy hours and lunch and learns and Monday calls, and you're doing follow-up calls, and you're wondering, why is my business continue to decline? It's because we've neglected the understanding of high value relationships. The qualified agent is king and queen in today's marketplace. So we've got to go in and I would say every 30 to 60 days, look at who's actively referring you, who's actively closing a loan every 90 days. That's what we call our qualified focus 40 agents. And we got to figure out who is qualified. Are they qualified? Are they not? And guess what? And I hate to say this, but if they're not qualified, we got to stop working with them. Doesn't mean we neglect them completely. It means we call them once a month. We mail them once a month. We shoot them a text once a month. I've got a whole process on the unqualified agents we go over in the Carl and my boot camp that we're doing. So we go over the whole unqualified process, how to convert unqualified agents. You just can't spend precious prospecting time going after agents who may or may not have the business. So the third mistake that we see is just neglecting high value relationships. So let me go back over it. Spending too much time on low payoff activities. The only way to overcome that is document this week, turn the sales activity green, the non-sales activity red. Look at, did you do enough selling? And I would tell you this, it's at least 2 hours of outbound prospecting while asking for the business, but take an honest assessment. Did I spend enough time on high payoff activities, or am I spending a lot of time on low payoff activities? Mistake number 2 is a lacking of leverage. We got to have leverage in process, in technology, and in people. So our processes have to be the same way every time, that lead them effectively through the conversation, through the process. We leverage technology that's easy to use, easy to implement, so that we can do more in less time. And we employ the right people, or replace the wrong people with the right people that keep us out of the busy work, so that we can focus on doing the right high payoff activity. And number 3, making sure that we do not neglect high value relationships. We got to focus on qualified agents, qualified agents, qualified agents. Every 30 to 60 days, are the agents that I've been going after still qualified? If they are, keep going after. If they're not, stop. Put them in your unqualified agent follow-up, and then go get more agents that are doing 8 or more buy-side transactions a year. And so, hey, listen, if breaking through 6 loans a month isn't, I'll tell you this, it's not about working harder. It's about working smarter. And if you want to go deeper into the strategies and take massive action, then let's connect. And I would encourage you, join me in my boot camp. Carl and I have joined forces on the boot camp. It's the Alliance and the boot camp combined. And we've helped hundreds of people over the last 9 months through these boot camps that we're doing. And so learn more about it at loanofficersuccess.com, loanofficersuccess.com. We can help you. This is just some of the great, I guess you could call it content, but it's really business strategies that'll help you go from 6 to 12, 12 to 24, 24 to 45, 48. Like, these are multiple multipliers in your business, and we can help you with that. Go to loanofficersuccess.com. There's a couple of pieces of information, fill out, myself and the team will reach out to you and see if the boot camp is something that would serve you well. And hey, I hope this helps. I want to make sure that we're being strategic of how to help you get unstuck and how to help you break past the 6 loans a month. Stay spending time on high payoff activities, leverage your process, leverage your technology, leverage your people, and then make sure you focus on high value relationships, which are qualified agents. Do this, and you're going to continue to break through, and we will see you on the inside. See ya.